So we're on at the end of RubyConf. The last talk. RubyConf has been pretty awesome so far. I hope I don't ruin it for you guys. No. So I'm here to kind of tell a story about the last about year. Can you guys hear me? How far back do I have to be? Is that good? Closer? All right. Louder? All right. So the story is kind of about the last year and how we went from not really knowing much about sandboxing to knowing more about it. And I'm going to kind of bring you guys through that and go through some of the lessons we learned and some of the tools that we're using now. So this is a picture of my dog. Her name is Piper. I put it up here just so it would relax me a little bit. All right, so last year, a little over a year ago, me and Greg Pollock were interested in doing a tutorial session at Lone Star RubyConf, and we had some problems before in the past. Trying to get everyone's machine set up. I mean, it took, like an hour or two. Sometimes people didn't have Xcode installed, and then they couldn't get Ruby installed, and databases, and all these different problems. So we kind of wanted to nip that in the bud, and obviously we're huge fans of Try Ruby. So I started getting the idea that maybe we can do Try Rails, so do Rails in the browser. And so this was kind of the first iteration of that. That's my design. I'm not a designer. But anyways, it worked. You could submit code to the back end, and that back end would execute it, and it would tell you if you're correct or not. So we had like a bunch of challenges, and it worked really well at the conference. We had about 30 people come. And, we started the tutorial session, and right away we were doing work. We were teaching people. No hassles. Well, a couple conference Wi-Fi problems. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. But it worked really well, and we got some really, really great feedback. Everyone really liked it, and there was a lot of super beginning people never seen Rails before. And it was really cool to see them just get right in and start writing Rails code. It was pretty awesome. So we did a kind of a dumb thing, and that is we decided to release it to the internet. We made it pretty. We had a designer go through it and do some designy things, and then tried to clean up some of the code. We made some videos, and then we released it to the world. And people really like zombies. So everyone kind of started talking about it. Metafilter, I don't know if you guys do Metafilter, but Hacker News, Reddit, etc. And pretty immediately, servers went down. And at first we thought, okay, of course, it's Rails, so it can't scale. But turned out it wasn't really a scaling problem. This is from Metafilter thread. Yeah. So that was nice of Zedshot to pop in and ruin our day. But no, it was all over the place. I mean, anyone with a little bit of knowledge could have broken it, right? We got a bunch of bad code coming in all over the place. Some just weird code. Had nothing to do with the lesson we were teaching. Just some weird. I don't know. I went through the database and looked through like all the code submissions, and that was a weird one I found. So I figured I'd show it. Luckily, we were on Heroku. Thanks to them, we could easily sort of restart the servers, and they have their whole like JRoot jails and stuff. So no one could really take out actual physical boxes and stuff. Also, we're very sorry. So this was the initial code I wrote to try to block people from doing bad things. There are no exploits in this code. No, there's like 1 million exploits in this code. I didn't really know what I was doing. So quickly, obviously, we realized that this wasn't the way to go. And we started looking into different ways of doing it. We got some capable, smart people on our team to work on it. And so sort of the rest of this talk, we'll be talking about a couple of ways we've been doing it better. Then after that, we're actually going to have a live sandbox breaking competition that you guys can participate in, hopefully. And the reason I'm doing that is because whenever people talk about sandboxes, programmers feel like they need to break them. So I feel like that's perfect for this crowd. And then I'm going to talk about some conclusions of what we found and maybe a way of going forward. So to start, let's kind of step back and ask what are we trying to do with sandboxing, right? So really it comes down to we want to run untrusted code. So we get code from people on the internet, and you can't trust people on the internet. So you actually want to run it and not have it screw everything up, right? So there's kind of like 4 things that you want to do when you run untrusted code. You want to protect against the namespace pollution, which basically means they can't override, the Ruby worlds like all the other objects and classes and stuff like that. So you want to kind of like isolate each person submitting code from everyone else also. You want to block dangerous operations from happening, so you don't want them to shell out and erase the file system. You want to limit the resource utilization, so basically you don't want them to, run forever and tie up the process and or maybe do like crazy I/O or something like that. You also want to protect secrets, so you don't want them to really. I mean, if you don't want them to look at anything on your server, probably, right? So those are kind of like the 4 criteria that sandboxing falls into. There's another one, though, that I think is kind of more important. Oh, that's a boring slide. That's what that's supposed to say. All right, you're supposed to do something fun, right, with the untrusted code that you get. You want to actually allow people to use Ruby, right? Because you could lock Ruby down. I wrote this afternoon. Basically, this only allows you to, create an object or add integers together. So, I mean, this is pretty sandbox. You can't really do anything, but it's not that much fun, right? All you're doing is adding numbers together. So that's no good. So there's, with sandboxes, there's sort of a trade-off. Basically in this scientific graph, there's a curve that's straight. It goes from being more safe, the safety of your running untrusted code, to more fun. And those are kind of inverse of each other. So really the goal is to get as far down into the fun area as you can, like on the x-axis, I guess. And actually, when I was looking at this, when I first made it, it kind of reminded me of drugs, right? Because like the more fun drugs are, the less safe. So really, sandboxing Ruby, we basically want to give them more drugs, right? Or in this case, more Ruby, which is the same thing, kind of. And these are, I pulled a couple of the reviews that we got for zombies, and people say, like, we have thousands of them, and a lot of people use the word fun. They say fun all the time. They have fun doing this, and I kind of want to just show a couple of these to show that, like, you know, it's important that we kind of get this right and not limit what you can do too much. So this guy had fun learning, gave us 5 stars. This guy had a great introduction, and for some reason gave us 1 star. I'm not sure about that. All right, so from the beginning with some other techniques. Of course, there's the safe global. Has anyone ever used the safe global in production or anything like that? Yeah? So basically, this is a global flag that defaults to 0. And that basically means that it just runs anything, right? And then there's a couple other levels that you can go up, and each level you go is more restricted to what you can run. And this sort of safe and the whole like tainted thing go together. So when you get say you get a param from a Rails controller and you say it's tainted, of course, yes, it's tainted because it comes from outside of the environment. So anything that comes from outside of the environment is automatically tainted. You can untaint things, but not when like a certain safety level is set, only when it's safety level 0, unless you hack around the C code. I'm pretty sure there was something at one point that could do that. I forget the name of the project. But anyways, so if you have safe level 0, any kind of tainted code can do anything. So say you set it to 1, code's tainted, and you eval it, and it's trying to do like a system call, so that it doesn't allow that to happen. This actually was written up in like the original Prague book, Ruby book, and actually I think it has like it uses sandboxing and namespacing and words like that. But another level is, another way that's commonly used is with threads. So you create a thread and you set the safety level in that thread only, and then the parent environment basically doesn't take the safety. It's still safe 0, but the thread has safe 3. And this is kind of how it's written up in the book, and it's pretty useful, but it's kind of like a blunt sword, or I don't know what's another analogy for that, but it's kind of a someone help me out with that one. Yes, it's dumb. Okay. And like for instance, when we originally tried to use this on Rails for zombies, shocker, Rails doesn't work if it's in a safety level. So you actually couldn't do anything with it. So we couldn't really go this route, unfortunately. I think for maybe like very simple things you could probably use safe, but considering this is what Y wrote back in like 2008, a lot by then no one really used safe, so I doubt anyone's going to use it now. So that's safe. So another way we tried doing it was with semantic analysis. And who was in that laser talk previously? That was insane. Yeah. We're not really doing anything like that. This is, I guess that's static analysis. This is a little bit different, semantic analysis. So this is kind of like, it's kind of like that GSub thing, but on steroids. So it uses uses Ripper, which hopefully will be complete with those bug fixes from the laser guy pretty soon. But it's pretty good. So we use basically you parse the Ruby or the Ruby code string that you want to run, and then you walk basically the output of that and try to determine if they're doing anything bad. And we built something called RubyCop that's kind of like does a lot of the hard work for you, right? So it basically, you can like create a policy that defines like what things are allowed, what things aren't allowed, kind of thing. You can whitelist constants, say, or blacklist constants, and then run the code, or not actually running it, but pass the code to like the node builder and find out if it's acceptable or not. So yeah, we use like blacklists for calls. So we're sort of like, you can't call these things, right? because they could possibly be dangerous. Same thing with constants. Same kind of deal there. So this isn't really a sandbox, right? But it sort of meets some of our criteria of sandboxes. So one good thing about it that other sandboxes don't really do is that you're really only sandboxing the code that was submitted to you, and not the code that you already have running, like in your Ruby process. So one big problem with the safe thing, like I was talking about, was that like if you turn on safe for that thread, and then you run someone's code that calls something in Rails, well, down in Rails it does something that's unsafe, and you can't use that, right? Because like something in Rails should be able to do that, but the code that was submitted should not. So this is kind of a good way to get around that problem. There are a lot of cons with this, though. It doesn't really create a new isolated environment, right? It's not doing anything with the environment. It's just looking at the string of code that you submitted and making sure it's not going to do anything bad, basically. If the code gets through, it can do anything. And it's too restricted, right? It's kind of more in the G-sub variety where you're not really giving people the full power, so they can't use like we block send, right? So if you call send, we don't run it. So really, you should be able to do that, and that's kind of a bummer, right? Oh, and there are a lot of Ruby edge cases. Obviously, this is just a small sample, but these are just some of the weirder ones that we found. I'm sure, like Charles, you probably know a lot more. But surprisingly, we have done like 1.3 million code submissions using this, and we don't really ever go down, and probably until after this talk, because you guys are going to go break it, basically. So even though it's not perfect, and it kind of limits a lot of it, it does work for our uses, and that's sort of like gotten us this far. But we kind of need a better way to do it. So recently, a couple months ago, I sort of took over the JRuby project, and I decided to rewrite it using our like code school engine and all that. But I wanted to use a better sandbox. So we kind of obviously used JRuby, written by Y. So we figured why not like kind of rewrite the Freaky Sandbox. And luckily it sort of had already been like rewritten a couple times, and we found one that was rewritten in JRuby called Java Sand. But it was I think it was targeting like 1.2 or 1.3, and it wasn't working anymore. So basically we stole a lot of code from that, updated it for the new 1.6 JRuby stuff, and implemented this sandbox. So it does a lot of things that we want. It isolates the namespace. So this is just a plain sandbox, eval some code, and then you can call that code inside the sandbox, but you don't have it outside the sandbox. So foo does not exist outside the sandbox, only inside the sandbox. And we kind of do that with a great thing in JRuby, where it gives you kind of an API to create a new instance of Ruby. I wish every Ruby had this. This would be awesome. But only JRuby. I don't know about, I'm sure Rubinius has something like this, but JRuby had it, so we rewrote this in JRuby. All right. Also blocks dangerous operations. So like I showed before, I just did sandbox.new, so that's just it doesn't actually it just isolates the namespace. But sandbox.safe, once you activate it, will actually remove a bunch of methods that are dangerous, like the system call and all that kind of thing. So it blocks dangerous operations from inside the sandbox. It also we integrated like FakeFS, so when you're running a safe sandbox, you can't read and write from the actual file system, but you can from FakeFS, which actually JRuby uses because it has some lessons on file stuff. So that was pretty handy. It also limits resource utilization. So when you call eval, you can pass timeout, and that's in seconds, obviously. And then if it runs longer than that, it'll time out, and you don't block your whole server. This is doing it in a kind of a nasty way right now with creating a new thread, calling join on it with the time, and then calling kill on the thread, kill bang, which I think is the original way that Y did it, and he said it was the hackiest thing in there, and yeah, it's pretty much the hackiest thing in there. So we would like to do something a little bit better than that, but right now I don't think there is anything. Also, another really cool thing with the sandbox is you can give the sandbox capabilities, so you can define a class or whatever outside of the sandbox and then reference it inside the sandbox. And then it does like it communicates with like the outside class to call methods using like method missing and stuff, and references hidden inside the JRuby runtime. So this is really cool especially for like JRuby stuff where we write some sort of like pop-up library that they're supposed to use. So we give a reference to the pop-up library, and you can like return objects back and forth between the sandbox and the native environment, and it uses like Marshall dump and load and that kind of thing. And so yeah, like I said before, we use this to build JRuby, which is up now, and it hasn't really been hacked yet. You guys can go ahead and try to hack it, but instead try to break this thing that I wrote. It's called the Sandbox Breaker 3000. It's written just so people can try to break these sandboxes. Let me show you that real quick. Ooh, that's a small. All right. So if you go to that URL and then hit new submission, if you go to that URL, hit new submission, and then you'll be taken to. Here, I'll show you that. Taking this screen here, put your code in there. If you want to put your name, whatever, you can put your name, and then choose which sandboxer. So, like I just kind of described, the jail one is the freaky JRuby one, because that's kind of what they're called. They're known as like jails, those style sandboxes. And then the semantic analyzer is RubyCop. And then when you guys submit code, it'll actually show up here live like that. So someone just submitted fork, and that doesn't work. So, but it would take a couple minutes just to try to break it, and I'll walk around. We can talk about trying to break it and stuff. So. There's a little bit after. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Yeah, that works.
Would it be better if you ran this entire thing in a different process, in a separate process? Because if there's a C extension that would set all, then the entire thing would run.
Yeah, so everything that we run, like on Code School and here, the actual code gets executed on a separate server than the app server. So this is actually, when you submit the code, it makes an HTTP request to the actual executing server. And then, is that kind of what you were asking about?
You're not getting recorded right now. You may be talking to.
Oh.
There's a mic out there you can walk around with too if you want.
Well, I'll just stand there. Sorry about that.
Repeat the question.
So the question was, shouldn't you execute the code on a different box? Is that
in a different process?
Instead of a different thread. Because if the thread goes down, then the entire system goes down, and if just the process dies, then the main process will continue to be
well, that's kind of how we're doing it right now, but we're sort of using, like we have many different instances of the executing server, right? So I guess if they take one down, we have other instances that are up, and then it'll fire it back up. Is that kind of what you mean?
Using symbols, or are you using strings?
Okay. Well, actually, it's impossible to actually break this app. At least I thought so. Yeah.
Look at the Heroku logs and see what happened.
Is it DDoS safe?
That's possible.
I multiplied, so I created a very large string of number 2i and then spread it.
Nice. I was just creating lots of symbols.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yesterday I did an attack on FakeFS where I basically opened a file and just kept writing data into it until I took all the memory. This FakeFS is just memory based.
At the time that from it goes, right?
It's recorded, right?
Which one were you? Was that the jail one? That's broken?
It sounds though like the approach is that they've been able to succeed with only good things that did exhaust the process about not necessarily
just came back up.
delete your hard drive. Or something.
Yeah.
Here, refresh the page.
Yeah, so I think what happened there was in the logs there was a Postgres error because the code submission was too long for the. Just because it saves like the output.
That was totally fine.
I'm strong bad.
So this one looks, the strong bad looks like, yeah, that's a big problem. The whole XSS attack, huh? Yeah, it didn't work. When I gave this presentation at work, they broke the XSS vector, and we're putting up funny images of dogs and such, but I fixed that.
Isn't it always created the
Ha, P. Can't use it. Hey, it's still running. That's not bad. I think the semantic one's probably easier to break. But
So, question for you.
Sure.
You have timeout implemented on the sandbox, right? But in the cases where like he was doing a loop and creating custom symbols, is there some other process that monitors the process that's trying to run the sandbox so that you can cut it off even if it's like tied, it's like overloaded?
no, nothing like that really. Yeah, these are just deployed on like Heroku. Nothing really that special. So, although Heroku really does a lot of stuff for free for us, server-wise. Like we actually deployed these. Who here works at Heroku? Don't tell anybody. But they use like Linux containers, right? Is that how you guys do the virtualization stuff?
Yeah.
Which is sort of something that I've been looking into, although, Heroku does it, so it's kind of like we get it for free. But it doesn't allow people to do like really malicious stuff if they get an exploit. The worst thing they can do is take down our app, which isn't too bad, right? And there could be a lot worse stuff than that. GC stress, that's a new one. No, it's
Every time you get a new string, the garbage collector runs.
Is that what it's doing?
Object that does a GC.
Well, all you guys are like isolated, or each request you guys do is isolated. So like if you do that, it should isolate it from the rest of the requests. Yeah, do it and then do a bunch of bad stuff. It would be bad.
It doesn't do anything for you.
No. So I'm guessing you're a little like you have. I'm guessing you know like a bunch of exploits right off the top of your head on this kind of stuff.
There's probably a few good ones. Depending on what version of JVM you're running, there's a big decimal exploit that was out a while back. That'd be an easy one to do. It's just it's a particular big decimal that you try and create it, but just JVM proves out.
Really?
It's just continually tries to improve the estimation and bounces back and forth.
Ooh, fun.
But I think we may patch around that ourselves.
So hopefully in that case, the 5-second timeout would catch it and be like,
Right, that's actually a question. So if the timeout, or if it's running and it's in, for example, a piece of code like that that's written in JRuby, written in Java and JRuby, and we're not checking thread kill in that case.
Okay.
Do you do anything for that at this point?
No.
Because, for example, the Java thread, there are the unsafe APIs that you can kill or suspend threads that you're never supposed to use. But in this sort of case, you could actually just physically kill the thread at that point, at the Java level.
Oh, so in the Java level, you mean kill the thread?
Right.
Not from Ruby.
So you can get a reference to the Ruby thread, the actual Java thread that goes with the Ruby thread, and then have it raise an exception.
I got you.
So this is actually something we're looking at right now. I don't know if you were asking about Sandboxes like a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we're having, like, we got a product that uses Sandboxes as well as a weekend thing. Our problem is like right now we're using Sandbox. And we're running tests against the PostGIS aspect. And we can't use anything that uses task management. So we didn't realize that after we got to this point. Now I'm guessing like guys are looking at JRuby to see. So I don't know what's going on. But I don't know if you have any idea.
Yeah, that was a good one. That one right there. Hey, it's still running.
Just took out an executive.
Yeah, after the exception, everything was collected, so it will continue to drag around.
Yeah, that timeout does work pretty well. All right, well, this will be up, I guess, if you guys want to keep hacking on it. And the code. Oh yeah, forget about this. All right, so kind of wanted to propose what I'm calling the freaky theory of sandboxes. And this is sort of based off of this guy, Allam Ginsberg. He was a poet, and he came up, he wrote How, I don't know if you guys know that. He came up with a theorem. Oh, the whole build thing is off. Oops. And he based it off of the laws of thermodynamics as applied to someone who's playing a game. So he said, number one is you can't win, which relates to the conservation of mass and energy. You can't break even, which relates to law number 2, which is entropy increases. And you can't quit the game, which relates to the law number 3, the impossibility of reaching absolute zero. So I'm basing my freaky theory on his theorem. And that is, number 1, there will always be another exploit. Number 2, one exploit is enough to take everything down. But no amount of exploits to keep us from trying to get this right. And making people happy, introducing people to Ruby in an easy and fun way. Yeah, told you that was all this stuff. All right, so I'm hoping to sort of like get a little bit more interest in people, maybe implementers, maybe not, interested in making it so we have like a better sandbox for Ruby. We're trying to do that at MV Labs and for Code School. You can find our the code for the RubyCop, which is the Semantic Analyzer, and the JRuby Sandbox, which is the freaky version. Up there, you can keep hacking on the Sandbox Breaker if you want. And in conclusion, I want to thank Dre Lacey, who did write a lot of this code, but couldn't make it to RubyConf and didn't want to do a presentation on it, so I sort of had to. So thanks to him, and thanks for coming out, and have a good weekend.